First today, though, it's the murder of much-loved Valerie Neil, whose short stay in hospital turned into a nightmare. Now, this film does contain some descriptions that you may find upsetting.
When she went into hospital, you believe that she's going to be safe, going to be well looked after. To think that somebody did that, it's horrible. Auntie Val, she was just such a wonderful, lovely person. She was fun, she loved people, she enjoyed life, and she was kind of the hub of the family. And she had this really, really lovely skill of making you feel so special and so loved. Her health on the whole was good. She was active. She'd worked hard all her life, and she was just enjoying her later years.
On Monday, the 12th of November 2018, 75-year-old Valerie Neil was at home with her husband, Bill. During the evening meal, she suffered a stroke and was admitted to Blackpool Victoria Hospital.
She was checked over, and she was doing okay. She was sat up, she was communicating, she was talking. Obviously, she was going to have challenges in her recovery, but we were all very hopeful of a positive outcome. Her children wanted to stay with her that evening, but the hospital said, you know, really, she's in the best place that she can be and there's no need, she's going to be absolutely fine.
But later, during her first night in hospital, Valerie's condition took a turn for the worse and she suffered a second stroke.
The immediate family went to the hospital and they were told that the prognosis or the outlook wasn't going to be really very good at all. So they made that decision to not have any further treatment, and obviously we were just waiting then for the inevitable. We spent some time with her. I remember telling her that the sun was shining and that there was that the sky was blue and that just to relax.
Valerie never regained consciousness. 5 days after being admitted to hospital, she died, surrounded by her family.
Losing her left a huge gaping hole in the family. And it was hard because, you know, the week before she was fine and then the week later she wasn't with us anymore.
In the following days, a post-mortem examination was carried out to try to establish what factors led to her death.
We weren't really looking for answers to anything. I think we just expected the post-mortem to say that she died of a stroke.
But the results of the post-mortem were so alarming that the pathologist contacted detectives at Lancashire Constabulary.
It's a conversation I'll never forget. But the pathologist had established that actually she had sustained a serious violent injury that had led to her death.
Valerie had been assaulted, possibly sexually, which had led to fatal internal bleeding. And the post-mortem established that the attack had happened whilst Valerie was a patient at the hospital.
It took me a while to process it, really, and I couldn't believe that somebody could have been assaulted in this way, such a serious assault, whilst in hospital, and I really was truly shocked. It's one of the hardest things in this investigation was telling Mrs. Neil's family that their mother and grandmother, who they thought died of a stroke, had actually died as a result of a serious violent attack.
To think that somebody did that to a lovely, lovely person at a time when she was helpless, at her most vulnerable, where she couldn't shout out, she couldn't defend herself.
The police launched a murder investigation, but evidence has been hard to come by.
This has been a particularly challenging investigation due to the fact that we were only alerted to the incident some weeks later after Mrs. Neil died. The forensic opportunities on the ward were significantly reduced. So our investigation has been very much focused around identifying people who have been onto the stroke unit during the relevant times. In order to do that, we have interviewed thousands of individuals, including staff members, other patients, visitors to those patients, just to piece together the timeline of events.
But 4 years later, the attacker still hasn't been identified.
There's a real worry to the investigation and to the hospital that this could be just one of a number of attacks. This may be at the hands of somebody who is a predator and who may have committed previous attacks of this nature and may continue to do so.
We're left with a huge wound that can't even begin to heal until we find out who's responsible for doing that. And so that we can get justice.
Well, we're joined now by DCI Jill Johnston from Lancashire Police. Jill, thanks so much for being in the studio with us today. This is a truly horrendous case. What happened to Valerie was at a time when she was at her most vulnerable in what should have been a place of safety. Can we just start by reassuring people that this type of crime is extremely rare, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is. I've never heard of anything quite like this ever happening before, particularly in a hospital setting. It's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. So just talk us through what you believe happened to Valerie.
Well, we know that Mrs. Neil was admitted to Blackpool Victoria Hospital on the evening of Monday, the 12th of November 2018. And she had suffered a stroke, but she was doing okay and her family were with her. So shortly before midnight, they left the hospital, and by that time, Mrs. Neil was on the stroke unit. But sadly, she deteriorated overnight. She suffered a second stroke, and that led to the family being called back in the following morning, and then they remained with her until she passed away, sadly, on the Friday of that week.
There was a post-mortem as well that happened post her passing, and what did that show up?
Well, at the time of her death, her family believed she died of a stroke, naturally, and it was only at that time of the post-mortem that we all learned that actually Mrs. Neil had been seriously assaulted, possibly a sexual assault, but certainly one that's left such a serious internal injury that Mrs. Neil bled to death whilst in hospital.
It's shocking. It's a lot to process as well, isn't it? And this attack all happened in quite a short time frame, didn't it? Just tell us a bit more about that.
So we know that she was attacked whilst in hospital, and we know that it's happened at some point after her family left her on that Monday night, and then up until the Wednesday afternoon. We know that Mrs. Neil was on one of the main bays in the stroke unit when she was first admitted, and then she was transferred into a side room on that Tuesday afternoon, and she remained there until she passed away.
This has been a wide-reaching and quite challenging investigation for you and the team. Jill, what have you learnt to date?
Well, over the past 4 years, we've obtained an awful amount of information, which has allowed us to build a minute-by-minute timeline of events that we know to have happened on the stroke unit, and that has included interviewing hundreds and hundreds of witnesses. But sadly, despite all of that, it's still not led us to identify who's responsible. And the challenges are made even worse with the fact that there is no CCTV. And due to the length of time between Valerie's death and the post-mortem, the forensic opportunities were massively reduced.
Yeah, of course. But it is just so alarming to think that this is something that happened in a hospital on a stroke unit. Now, we've had this statement from Blackpool Victoria Hospital's chief executive, who says our thoughts are firmly with Mrs Neil's family and we remain committed to discovering the truth about how she died. The Trust has worked closely with Lancashire Police since the start of their inquiries and continues to do so. Once again, we urge anyone with information, however small the detail, to step forward and help the investigation team. Given the location, does this change the nature of the investigation at all, Jill?
Well, I think it does, doesn't it? Because the fact that this has happened in a hospital setting is of grave concern to everyone. And we've worked tirelessly along with the hospital to get justice for Mrs Neil and her family, but also to stop this ever happening again. So we need to identify who's responsible.
Yeah, of course. And we heard from Valerie's niece, Lisa, in the film. They're absolutely heartbroken that this has happened. We're over 4 years on now. They're still looking for answers. They need justice, don't they? I mean, how are they doing?
They really are an incredible family, and it is clear to see that Mrs Neil was absolutely adored by all of them. So not only did they have to come to terms with her loss, to learn that she died in this horrific way, it was a huge shock to them, obviously. But they fought tirelessly over the past 4 years to get justice, and also are just desperate for answers.
So for anybody that's watching at home this morning, how can they help? What information do you need today?
Well, I'm asking anyone, whether you were working perhaps or visiting Blackpool Victoria Hospital in November 2018, just to think back. Did you see anyone acting suspiciously or anything that maybe just didn't feel right? Did you hear anything? Or has somebody spoken to you either at that time or later? Or is it that the inquiry hasn't managed to trace you, where you were a visitor to somebody in that time? Please, please come forward and share that information with us, no matter how insignificant you might think it is. Please, please share it.
And finally, there is a reward in connection to Crime Stoppers as well, isn't there?
Yes, so if you are uncomfortable contacting the police, then you can contact the independent charity that is Crime Stoppers. They've offered a £20,000 reward for information that leads to a conviction, and that would be completely anonymous.
Jill, thank you very much. Well, as we said, this is a rare crime in an even rarer setting, and obviously finding the person responsible is critical. So if you have any information, no matter how small, our phone lines are open until midday, and the number to call is 08000 468 999.